things. Visit KAB.org.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. Be a part of the show by calling 915-544-KTSM, 915-544-5876, or comment online on our stream at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. It's 4 p.m. Mountain Time, and that means it's time to talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk, whichever outlet works best for you, whichever platform, wherever get your accounts, whatever. For those that don't really have any, YouTube kind of is the best that way. Won't be able to comment without an account, but really whatever works best for you is the right place as we continue our mission to have A, live local talk radio here in the borderland, and B, talk about the issues that affect us right here, because no one else is going to do that besides the people who live and experience and deal with these issues. A lot of people always try to tell us how we think and feel, and it always felt a little bit hollow at best. So having those discussions, getting those ideas of consensus, we have Ida Beza Gardner joining us over on the Facebook. Thank goodness it's Friday for definitely agree with that one here. And a quick programming note for you. I had promised I'll give a few more details about what is going on with some of our programming today. As you may be aware, this is going to be the one and for the moment only gubernatorial debate that we are going to be having for the state of Texas between, of course, incumbent Republican Governor Greg Abbott and Democrat challenger, former El Paso Congressman Robert Francis Beto O'Rourke. We are going to be airing that debate in its entirety immediately after our show today. So, of course, it airs at 7 Central, 6 p.m. Mountain Time. So we are going to be bringing that to you full and complete without commercial interruption immediately after this broadcast here. It'll probably be like 10, 15 seconds before I can run around and hit the button to turn on that. But yes, that will be coming. That will be happening. So you'll be able to stay tuned right here to hear that full debate and hopefully get a little bit better informed. That'll be, again, happening 6 p.m. Mountain Time immediately after our program today. So we also have Joanne's chiming in over from the YouTube. Excited for Friday there as well. Fully agree with you, and there'll be a lot going on today. So, of course, we have the debate. We have some of the interesting bits of topics here to give you a bit of a preview for it. In fact, we have some of the details about what will be coming, and Marcos Arroyo commenting was walking in downtown today and a lot of businesses shut down. We're very curious to know which specific area of downtown that you were wandering around, because depending on where you're at, that has been the case in some ways, particularly when we're talking about what's been going on with, say, the whole Golden Horseshoe area, or I guess that's a dated term in its own right, but a lot of the foot traffic that used to come across, I mean, there's some talk of it recovering. We've done some coverage on that ourselves, so knowing a little bit more near the Tap Bar area, which, yeah, that had been a pretty high traffic and high consumer activity kind of area. Hope the Tap itself is doing fine. I'll admit, I haven't been down there in a minute, couple of years, 3 probably at this point, so hope they're doing all right. RJ asking if we're going to hear only or watch two only here. I mean, we still got essentially audio rights for when it comes to that. We'll try to link to some of the debates as well that we'll post over on our social media to that coverage, but we will be having it on our actual airwaves. So that means you can listen to it through the iHeartRadio app or hear it by tuning into, of course, 690. So some of those details, of course, coming along with that. Are going to be having that go till right about the top of the hour, of course, that being produced by KUT Radio Austin, providing the audio feed. Thanks to them for that. And, of course, the debate hosted by KXAN TV news anchor Britt Moreno. Feature questions from a panel of journalists, including Sally Hernandez of KXAN TV, Gromer Jeffers of the Dallas Morning News, and Steve Spritzer of KSAT San Antonio. The panel will pose questions to each candidate, including several submitted from voters in advance, focus on such topics as immigration, gun violence, and abortion rights. So ever so slightly those hot button topics that are coming up. And so, of course, again, Texas gubernatorial candidates, Republican incumbent Greg Abbott and Democrat Beto O'Rourke, also known as Robert Francis Beto O'Rourke, happening from the University of Texas Rio Grande Valley campus in Edinburgh, Texas. So be sure to tune in for that again, happening immediately after the program there. RJ saying knew it. I mean, radio rights and broadcast rights are things, but we'll do our best to make sure however you tune in for the show here, you'll be able to get it however you want to, and the many ways that we put things out. So that's just a little bit of appetizer, setting the table, so to speak, because we got a lot more coming up for you right now. Because, of course, Friday, regardless of other debates going on, we have it's not exactly a debate, but our ongoing discussion and delving into the issues that we do for what we like to call Free for All Friday, meaning we are taking on all the comments and calls that we can cram into 2 hours of the program. So already beginning to get to a bunch of them over there on the comments. Keep them going there. We'll pop them up and talk about them as best we can. But of course, that phone line also already open. If you want to chime in that way, add your 2 cents, questions, comments, concerns, etc. We're taking it all on today because that's what we do best on Fridays and why it's one of our favorite days, favorite days of the week. That number to call, of course, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Got a call on the line here already. Again, if you're calling in the midst of a segment, you might get popped off live. So be ready is all I'm saying. So we do have a caller on the line and a bunch more chiming in right now. Great minds think alike, I do suppose. So let's go with that first caller. You're live with Talk El Paso. Who's this?
Hey, Andrew. Hi. This is on the west side. Hey, I'm calling because, this station has really taken off. I mean, I'm sure you're a trendsetter now. I mean, things that we were talking about a year ago or 2 years ago, now the national media is talking about them. So I figure that they're probably listening, but they're, just way behind us. But one of the things that I was talking about was that we talked about on the station about a year ago was slavery and reparation, remember? But
yes, I do.
What happens is that even the African people are asking for reparation from England. And one of the things that people don't realize is, or they don't know history, and now I'm not a historian and I'm not a philosopher or a poet or a short storyteller, nor am I a time traveler, but I read a lot. And one of the things that happened is that for 1,000 years, people don't know this, but for 1,000 years, from about the 1400, from about the 1200 period, there was a lot of marauders and raiders that were invading the coastal towns of Europe. And they wouldn't just steal the property. They would kidnap the people and take them back to Africa. And in Africa, they would make them slaves. They would turn them into slaves. And this happened, now, the period that I just told you may have been off, but this happened for about 1,000 years. Millions of white people were kidnapped from the coastal towns of Europe, England, Ireland, and they were taken back to Africa and, of course, made slaves, enslaved. And they were treated them pretty bad. They were treated really, really bad, the white slaves, because, they could get more slaves. The slaves died, they would just go back up the coast and get more. But now this happened for 1,000 years. So what happened was the white Christians in Europe decided to try to stop this. And they had some battles with the people that are called the Barbary Pirates or the Le Cruzeurs. These people were constantly kidnapping white people and taking. And this happened even before the United States, the colonies were established or anything. Now, you got to remember, we only had slaves for about 80-some years in this country. But for 1,000 years, the Africans, and especially in Northern Africa, had white slaves. And of course, like I said, they weren't treated right. They weren't treated good. They were treated bad. So for these people to be claiming reparation, it doesn't make sense. Why aren't the white people claiming reparation? All these slaves. There was more white slaves. Even here, there was more white slaves during the time of slavery.
So we've had this discussion point before about, and I'm still going to stand by the difference between indentured servitude, which is a definitely historically documented fact of happening, and chattel slavery, because to equate the two it just doesn't pan out that way. It doesn't work, to put it that, because one was a contract entered to, and one was a completely involuntary act based on the nature of one's birth. So sure, if you want to lump them in with slaves, yeah, that's your prerogative, but I'm not going to follow you on that leap of faith there. I mean, I almost thought you were talking about the Vikings at first when we were talking about the time periods, but yes, the Barbary pirates were operating in their own way in many different ways. And if you want to go even further back with it, slavery as an institution has existed for literally thousands of years. It's literally mentioned within biblical scripture because it was a facet and a feature, particularly in the Old Testament. There are literally laws and rules written out about the treatment of it, release days, jubilee years, those kind of things. And so to say that slavery is a uniquely, North American or American country in general phenomenon would be incorrect. I'll agree with you on that limited point here, but by saying that there was, I mean, if you're going to be seeking reparations from any one of your ancestors that were being taken part or being put into servitude by the, again, Barbary pirates, would probably want to then go to one of those successor governments there. I mean, I'm not saying you could have a good time of it in Tripoli, but hey, it's possible. And if you're ever wondering where that part of from the halls of Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli comes from within the Marine Corps hymn, that's where it is. And yes, there was some early interactions involving the United States of essentially, I would equate it maybe a little bit closer to the British press gangs of the way that they were taking and then forcing into particularly naval service captures there. Not calling it a good thing, but again, there are vagaries and specifics of history that we get into here. And yes, the idea of, essentially there being Arab or specifically Muslim captors of Christian servants. I mean, there's a lot of fraught issues with there. I'm not calling it any means a good, or therefore it makes anything else better or worse. Comparing parts of history and saying, well, they had it worse, therefore this doesn't matter, I find to be a useless exercise overall. But it's also interesting that you put it there that there were literally U.S. military exercises while there was still in place the aspect of slavery within the United States. And so getting to your point then about the 80 years, I think I get what you're getting at there, is that you're talking about within the existence of the United States from essentially, 1776 or probably closer to 1780, really doing that kind of a math when you're then getting to, of course, in the end of the Civil War. Yes, within the duration of the country was about that long. But if you want to talk about the institution of chattel slavery as it existed within this country, then you're going back further hundreds of years, because even before the existence of the United States of America, of course, the institution of slavery existed well before that, even in the particular facet that it took within the territory that is now the country we inhabit. So to say that, it wasn't really that bad, and really it happened much longer elsewhere, I still find that incredibly unsatisfying and relativistic, that I, again, don't really encourage whenever we do a historical study. Not a historian myself, but I have done a lot of historical study. I just have not pursued any degrees or papers written on that, except in very limited circumstances. But this is one that I have looked at. So I'm not going to say I'm qualified to talk about it, but in my reading of history and my looking at it, these were both bad things. Let's just put it that way. So again, the whole kind of crux of the argument that you're getting at here about saying that there is, bad things helping elsewhere, therefore this wasn't really that bad. Yeah, not really great. Yeah, just got to say that they're both bad, even if I'm getting getting some comments about an intellectual dishonesty here. Okay, let's just put it bad. These were both bad things, and trying to justify one in the existence of the other, again, I do not find to be reasonable, or to take a phrase going on here, intellectually honest. So tell you what, we got to take that next break now. So do appreciate the point in the call for what it's worth. Well, we're getting into all of these because this is what we do on Fridays. We get into all the comments and calls because we got a lot of issues to delve into and a lot of things I want to talk about it. So we're going to go ahead and take that next break right now. Coming out of this break, getting to more of the comments, more of the calls, more of everything we do at this point during the show. Again, if you want to get on air, that number to call is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
A multi-vehicle accident, I-10 westbound at Reynolds, is stacking traffic back up to Airway with 5 to 10 minute delays. I-10 westbound from Geronimo to the Patriot right now is a 7-minute delay. The Lower Valley eastbound at Zaragoza exit, the exit ramps blocked because of heavy congestion. And Gateway North at Diana, all lanes are back open from that earlier crash. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by the Mark Moss Show podcast.
Bitcoin's U.S. dollar valuation might be down, but the technology, progress, and adoption is moving forward at a blistering rate. I'm Mark Moss, helping you navigate the decentralized revolution. Listen to the Mark Moss Show on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
From fuel injectors to intake valves to combustion chambers and beyond, your car's emission system takes a beating. It gets choked with baked-on carbon that affects your air-to-fuel ratio, slowing you down. You gotta keep it clean to get top performance, longer vehicle life, higher gas mileage, and to pass state emissions testing. Show your car some love with CRC Guaranteed to Pass Emission System Cleaner. Yep, guaranteed to pass. Strong language for a strong product. And here's some more. Double your money back if you don't pass. You know it's gotta work. It's on the shelf at your favorite auto parts store, so grab some today. Expensive? Heck no. Hard to use? Heck no. Effective? You bet. Try it once, and you'll add it to your car a few times a year to keep things rolling just right. CRC Guaranteed to Pass Emission System Cleaner. Look for the box.
On a busy construction site, things can be misinterpreted. Bring in the bulldozer can sound a lot like
building looks mediocre.
Designs need a do-over.
Or even
install a roller coaster? Okay.
Be on the same page at every stage with Autodesk, from the designers to the field crew to the owner of the finished building. Autodesk Construction Cloud gives everyone clarity. Now, can we actually bring in the bulldozer?
34 killed, 174 injured. JusticeForLiberty.org.
2 hours of pure hell. Fires, bombs, armor-piercing bullets, rockets, cannons, Israeli Defense Forces. I don't know why they call them defense, because they were attacking us. There were over 850 rocket holes in the ship, 5,000 armor-piercing bullets, napalm, and a 40 by 48-foot hole in the starboard side.
Please visit JusticeForLiberty.org and contribute whatever you can. Paid for by If Americans Knew.
Donna from Louisiana. The storm just hit, and we went from donating to the food bank to needing it.
Hunger is a story we can end. End it at feedingamerica.org. Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. Again, whichever way is best for you to get on here, be able to see us, their 2 cents, those kind of things. That's the right place for you as we continue our mission to have live local talk radio in the borderland and getting into the very many interesting and different topics. Already kicking it off, I guess strong is one word to use for it. So far for this Free-for-All Friday, taking all of your comments, calls, everything we do. That number to call is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. If you want to get on that line there, that's the number to do. So a lot of comments coming in as well. Marcus Arroyo responding to the concept of what we brought up the first one, saying some Native American tribes had slaves too and fought for the Confederates in the Civil War. No, I'm not a white supremacist. Talking about a previous comment about the nature of some people calling into the show. Okay, let's just try to put a pin in that whole thing about, racism is a thing. I'm not in any way trying to deny that, no one's really racist or anything like that, because, yeah, there are absolutely some people out there that think that someone is superior, not simply based on their racial and ethnic background. Very much definition of what racism is. And sure, there are many other ways that it can be ingrained in people. But when we're talking about it, I guess when it starts coming out as a rhetorical point about, well, that's just racist. Like, okay, let's delve into it here beyond just trying to pull that up as some kind of a talisman of, and therefore you're wrong and everyone should disagree with you. Let's delve into the actual issues. I guess that's the real issue I have whenever it comes up to about decrying that or saying that, well, you're wrong because you are X, Y, or Z. It kind of leaves the core point unaddressed. And that's, I get the real issue that I have with it and about all the other issues. And anyway, it had a lot of interesting comments going on there. Anyway, let's go back to those phone lines. Again, that number to call, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. We do have Andrew on the west side here with us on the line right now. Andrew, thanks for joining us.
Yes, good afternoon. How you doing?
Doing all right there. What's on your mind?
I don't know if you heard or it was announced, but 30 minutes ago, it was announced out of Boston, Massachusetts, U.S. District Judge F. Dennis Saylor dismissed Mexico's lawsuit against gun manufacturers.
You know, that one had passed my mind, past my notice, as we've been focused on a lot of things for the debate tonight. But that is very interesting news, something that we've talked about off and on over, gosh, feels like years at this point, probably is actually. And why I'm not surprised that that's the factor, because as we've talked about this many times, standing, as in the ability to actually have the right to bring suit, was more than a little bit of my basic question involving that whole situation.
Yes, I agree. Well, basically, from my understanding is it was Mexico was barred by federal law, and it failed for other reasons. Number one was standing. Number two was lawful protection in commerce, the Firearms Act. And people say, well, the gun manufacturer is the only one that is protected from lawsuits. No, that's not the truth. Lawful protection in commerce also applies to people in the beer industry. For example, you imagine Anheuser-Busch being sued because so mmany drunk drivers are consuming Budweiser and they're contributing to fatalities by drinking while driving.
I mean, I think that there might be some prevention that probably should be done, if only as a good business sense. But in terms of actual legal culpability, I mean, it was the same thing as, therefore, putting it to, say, the car manufacturer by saying, well, you didn't put an alcohol, a breathalyzer ignition interlock system on there, therefore you're also culpable to it. I mean, at a certain point, there is a level of personal responsibility, but then also, what are our values as a society that we are trying to put forth on this about? I mean, sure, the phrase, not one more life is often persuasive in a lot of ways, but as a society, that has not been our policy. As much as it sounds gross, and I mean that in the very basic sense to say it's to, we do put a value on human life. To say that what it takes to put in a traffic intersection can literally be broken down more or less actuarially about what it costs, what it will take, and what it'll then be put in the resources for. And we, again, our society and governments at all levels make those decisions daily, and it tends to not be on the side of, if it saves one more life, because among other things, budgetary concerns are an issue.
Well, yes, but one of the things I was going to say, they could appeal it to the First Circuit, but I don't think it's going to go anywhere else from there, because if it gets to the Supreme Court, it's going to be dead on arrival. If certiorari is granted at the Supreme Court level.
Yeah, I would be incredibly surprised if that were to happen. Again, given the extraterritorial nature of this in general, talking about what manufacturers here in this country are doing and others, I mean, at the very basic level, I would anticipate that would be something to be pursued within their own courts. So it being sought this way was just, I wasn't finding much precedent on it, to be honest with you.
No, but I'll tell you, when it comes to deaths that can be prevented, I mean, I generally don't go out after 10 o'clock at night on Friday or Saturday, because between those hours, 10 o'clock to 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, that's the most dangerous time to be out on the street. Too many drunks.
Oh, yes. I've mentioned it before, and I have seen too many examples of it. Yeah, I've oftentimes, particularly Friday nights, and this one will probably be no exception, I'm often here into some of the wee hours of the morning preparing for a lot of our weekend programming. And if we start getting to even midnight is about my personal cutoff, because anytime I've been up between midnight and particularly on a Friday night and 3 a.m., even in that bound, I'm just like, well, I guess I'm here. It's about midnight, and I just think to myself, well, I'm here for about another 3.5 hours probably, because yeah, you're kind of taking your life in your hand. And now there's the whole, I am by no means saying, and we should just accept that as the fact of life here. Nothing can be done about it. There's a whole lot that should be done about it, both in terms of enforcement and in terms of like education, teaching people that, yeah, you're kind of being a insert several 4-letter words here person when you are going out and drinking and driving. But then to hold the people like the car manufacturers or even the alcohol resellers or the alcohol, manufacturers themselves saying, well, you're the cause of this. Again, they probably should be for their own PR purposes doing more. But really, when it comes down to it, probably the best way to do it is, again, more enforcement, and maybe even for the bars. I know there's been some more enforcement on that about, no longer serving obviously intoxicated people, though that has been its own troublesome bit in its own right.
Yes, sir. Anyway, I turn the mic back over to you. Have a good weekend.
Yeah, appreciate it. You have a good one there as well.
Thanks.
And tell you what, we're already at the bottom of the hour there now and getting back into it. Well, we'll keep doing what we do here on Fridays. More comments coming in over on the social media. Austin Redfern asking a specific question. Will the debate be broadcast on the internet? I do believe it will be streamed, but okay, we'll have more details on that. Share up what we got. Probably won't be up until probably right before the debate. Again, talking about the gubernatorial debates going on tonight immediately following our program. So yes, we're going to be bringing to that you in the full, and following that, the first hour of the Mark Levin program. So stay tuned for all of that. Again, 6 p.m. Mountain Time. We will be bringing you that. The first, and to our at least knowledge so far, nothing else planned I'm aware of, only debate going on between, again, current incumbent Texas Governor Greg Abbott, Republican, and Democrat challenger Robert Francis Beto O'Rourke, former El Paso congressman. So stay tuned for that, again, immediately following the program. But in the meantime, we're still going to be doing that whole free-for-all Friday thing that we do. So stay tuned for more Talk El Paso after this break. Again, the number to call if you want to get on the line, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso. You're on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Hello, I'm Erica Castillo with this KFOX 14 News Update. A man living in Las Cruces has been sentenced for sexual exploitation of children. Cheyenne Downing was sentenced today after authorities found several video files of young girls engaging in sexually explicit conduct. Officials say the discovery was made when authorities in New Mexico investigated offenders sharing child pornography. Downing was sentenced to probation for 5 to 20 years. He must register as a sex offender. Nearly 70% of Americans are looking for extra work to combat inflation, according to a new study conducted this month by Blue Crew, which is a workforce as a service platform. A big part of what makes it hard on El Paso residents to make ends meet during soaring inflation is that most aren't making a livable wage with one job, according to Bianca Cervantes, who's with Workforce Solutions Borderplex. And those who buy tickets to this year's Sun Bowl game will probably receive merchandise from last year's matchup that was scrapped between Washington State and Miami. You just have to follow a few steps on kfoxtv.com. I'm Erica Castillo with this KFOX 14 News Update.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
A multi-vehicle accident, I-10 westbound at Reynolds, is stacking traffic back up to Airway with 5 to 10 minute delays. I-10 westbound from Geronimo to the Patriot, right now it's a 7-minute delay. The Lower Valley eastbound at Zaragoza exit, the exit ramps blocked because of heavy congestion. And Gateway North at Diana, all lanes are back open from that earlier crash. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
We're ending the work week with some clouds overhead, but the warm and dry weather pattern will continue with seasonable temperatures. Your forecast for tonight has partly cloudy skies with temperatures cooling into the middle to upper 50s by Saturday morning. Coming up tonight, we'll talk about how long this fall-like weather continues, plus a look at your weekend forecast. From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Kira Miner.
This report is sponsored by Blindster. Do you need new blinds or shades? Blindster.com offers custom-made blinds, shades, and shutters shipped directly to you at prices less than big box retailers. Blindster blinds are easy to install and guaranteed to fit. Don't overpay for new blinds. Shop today and save big. Blindster.com.
There's a clear and present danger. It's deadly fentanyl, and it's killing our kids. How's it getting here? Through our southern border.
That's Tarrant County Sheriff Bill Wayburn warning us that the drug cartels are using the open border to flood Texas with fentanyl. The cartels even make fentanyl in the form of candy that's targeted to our kids. They call it rainbow fentanyl. This year alone, law enforcement has seized enough fentanyl to kill every Texan 10 times over. They call it a weapon of mass destruction. But Beto O'Rourke must not care about that because he supports open borders. Despite the deadly drugs, the gangs, the human suffering, Beto says there isn't a problem at our border. Not a problem. Our border is considered the most dangerous in the world, and it's getting worse. Beto O'Rourke, he's too radical and too dangerous for Texas, and it's why Beto O'Rourke should never be governor of Texas.
Political ad paid for by Texans for Greg Abbott.
Talk El Paso, bringing you the biggest stories from the borderland and beyond, 4 to 6 p.m. every weekday, brought to you in part by Sergio Lewis Body Shop. Call the pros at 915-593-0191. That's Talk El Paso, Monday through Friday at 4, right here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
Bitcoin's US dollar valuation might be down, but the technology, progress, and adoption is moving forward at a blistering rate. I'm Mark Moss, helping you navigate the decentralized revolution. Listen to The Mark Moss Show on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This report is sponsored by the Mark Moss Show podcast.
Hello, I'm Erica Castillo with this KFOX 14 News Update. The Gadsden School District rolled out its Parents on Patrol program today. The school district is receiving help from local parents to help address the lack of school resource officers at its campuses. The Gadsden School District has struggled to bring school resource officers to all its campus. At the start of the school year, the district only had officers at 2 of its 27 campuses. When the program was started, 77 parents signed up as volunteers, but 14 passed the background checks and went through the training period. The parents are not allowed to carry weapons on duty. And the city of El Paso's History Museum will host an out-of-this-world exhibit. It's called Hubble, the Space Telescope. It will be on view beginning October 1st. The Hubble Traveling Exhibition is a 2,200 square foot interactive exhibit that immerses visitors in the magnificence and the mystery of the Hubble mission and introduces the James Webb Space Telescope. I'm Erica Castillo with this KFOX 14 News Update.
Traffic's bad enough without Mother Nature adding to your headache. Traffic and weather all day. Stay informed with El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM. News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thanks for tuning in however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. Whichever works best for y'all, that's the best place for you to be to continue our mission to have live local talk radio here in the borderland. And again, some of the big news we're talking about today, including what's coming, we're going to be having your live coverage of the gubernatorial debates happening this evening, coming out of Edinburgh, Texas. Live coverage is going to be happening right here on News Radio 690 KTSM immediately following our program at 6 p.m. So, of course, we'll have some preemption and moving back of our other programming for the evening. So, catch the first hour of the Mark Levin program. Immediately after that is the debate itself, taking approximately 1 hour, but a lot more of that to come here. A lot of comments. Anytime the slavery issue gets brought up, it seems very interesting points being made. And even some more points being made about that, including the idea of pro-life and the UMC bond. Let me just say, I find it's, again, not a good effort to put into place, not exactly entirely futile because you're entitled to your opinion, but telling people what their other beliefs mean to them, because that's kind of not how it works, and a little bit of straw man on its own here. Of course, entitled to your opinion on what will be going on with, say, the UMC bond. We do have some of those deadlines, of course, coming up next week about what will be happening, what those decisions will be, and what County Commissioners Court specifically will be doing, both in regards to the actual petition that was submitted, where previous guests on the show with a Libre Initiative talking about that, as well as, well, if it'll go to the ballot or not. Because nothing that comes out of this will immediately, say, quash the issue. It'll either put it on the ballot or not, is what it comes down to. And so more debate to be had on that, sure. But again, entitled to your opinion. But I guess just anytime someone tells me this is the way you have to believe if you claim certain beliefs, it's kind of like not how it works. But again, entitled to your own opinion anyway. And RJ bringing up over on the social media saying that Anthony Johnson sues a servant's John Kaser over indentured servitude contract. Johnson, a former indentured servant, became a wealthy tobacco farm owner in Virginia, and that he won his case against Kaser, and a black man owned Kaser as a slave for life. In 1655, Black John Kaser became the first slave for life in America. And of course, there were a lot of legal changes that happened after that point as well. So, I mean, as you say, the rest of the story. I mean, the legal basis for how it worked in the United States, again, or the pre-United States, we're talking about like the Virginia Compact being the ruling document at that point in time for that portion of what would become the United States. But again, something that isn't often talked about. But let me just say this, that by no means justifies it or makes it better, saying that, oh, someone else doing it wasn't that bad. No, it was all bad. And even if we're talking about historical perspective about saying, well, it was just accepted at the time, these were radical changes even to English common law at the time, changing and putting that into place, including that, those from the, those who were slaves, and that became, that were born to those who were in slavery would become slaves themselves, changed parts of English common law and other parts of it. So even at the time, also, there were people saying that this is bad, this is wrong, and this is not something we should be supporting in this country. Even, again, some of the historical research I've done myself into what the founding fathers did is that, I mean, hell, when you get to Thomas Jefferson, noted slave owner and even slave interactor, shall we say, did not like the institution. In his writings, including for the Declaration of Independence, they removed stanza of it. Okay, stanza isn't the right phrase, but the right phrase. What was removed from it was about the imposition of the institution of slavery. He was in writing in his own against it, even though he definitely greatly benefited from it. So it was not necessarily seen as a good thing, but rather as even at that point, antiquated institution that would eventually die out on its own, because it wasn't also the most terrifically profitable thing until more technological innovations. The cotton gin. If you want to find one point in history that could point most directly to a serious cause for the Civil War, outside of course, the decisions of men over years, cotton gin would actually be a pretty significant one, because it made and even saw the expansion possibility of the institution at that point in time. History is rarely simple and can be described in broad swaths, but often in doing so, you're bending over a lot of niches and valleys within the actual historical record. And so more of the comments coming in, including Marky Mandingo saying, remember to tell all your contacts to call their city and county reps to not vote for the certificates of obligation for UMC expansion. My note on that, just the county in this case. City doesn't have a part in this one, saying, remember the Bankrupt Children's Hospital, continuing on with Marky's statement. This affects us all. It's a nonpartisan issue. I'll go with you on that finer point, but let's go back to those phone lines now. Again, the number to call if you want to get on the line, 915-544-5876, 915-544 KTSM. Do you have a call on the line here right now? You're live with Talk El Paso. Who's this? All right. Hello there. Can you hear us? Hello. All right. That one may not quite be working there. If you're going to call in, just as a personal favor, make sure you're in a quiet-ish area so that we can actually hear you, because I think I heard a hello, Andrew, there, but I am by no means sure. So try it one more time. Can you hear us now?
Hello, Andrew. How are you doing today?
Doing all right there. We seem like you got a lot of background noise there. Oh, that's a bit better.
Sorry about that.
That's all right. So I think I'm going to put you on hold, try to see if I can talk with you during the break and at least get some of your concerns on there. So go ahead and stay on the line. So we'll try another call here. We do have another caller on the line. You're live with Talk El Paso. Who's this?
It's Raul.
Hey there, Raul. What's on your mind?
Hey, to your caller objecting to reparations for blacks. Hello?
Yes, we got you here.
Okay. From 1776 to 1865 is 89 years. And then from 1865 to 1965, when they passed the Civil Rights Act, is another 100 years, a total of 189 years of unequal opportunity and unequal justice for blacks, and hundreds of years of economic and job discrimination against blacks and browns, Hispanics, and women. It's a long history of exploitation of people. Now, the gun and ammo makers, they should be taxed to cover the cost of hardening schools. and compensate victims and families murdered with their weapons and bullets. Now, I'm going to attend a debate party this evening, and I know Beto, and I like him, and I know he'd be a lot better for El Pasoans than A-Butt, who hasn't done anything for me, as far as I can see, that has made most Texans' lives materially better. And Beto loves El Paso. A-Butt could give a rat's rear about this far-off Democratic city full of Mexicans who always vote for Democrats, you know. In fact, A-Butt jeopardized my family's life and other Texans and El Pasoans who have families working in the schools by jeopardizing the lives of teachers and school personnel, some of them who died from COVID, with his inane public school policies during the outbreak of the once-in-a-lifetime pandemic that killed 1 million Americans and over 89,000 Texans. Schools would be super spreader places. I mean, it's just unbelievable. So we had a killer virus that the President of the United States was responsible for fighting by leading and marshaling the vast resources of the federal government in response to it. So the crisis that many Americans feared would challenge this sociopathic, malignant narcissist who proclaimed himself a very stable genius, who regularly said that he knows more about everything than everybody, and that he alone could fix it. So it fell upon Trump to lead the government's response to the pandemic. And he started out by declaring it a Chinese hoax. And then the bovine-eating buffoon talks to Bob Woodward and tells him that he played down the virus, its deadliness, and its contagiousness. And then he said the cootie would miraculously go away on its own. But as soon as it broke out, and then he got it. And then he bragged about developing the vaccine in warp speed. And then he threw the ball and responsibility for dealing with the virus to the governors, who didn't have the resources of the federal government, while he continued to play golf regularly like he did for a quarter of his presidency. So back to goofball government A-Butt. He did not have the schools taking preventative measures and prevented them from taking actions to contain the virus spread by taking everybody's temperature, testing everyone, asking them if they have had symptoms or know anybody who came down with a COVID, or require mask wearing, and making sure that everyone who could take the vaccine got vaccinated. So, I mean, he's a total failure in that respect, and he's a Trumper. He got behind Trump on those policies, and that's why Texans suffered.
I mean, I understand your perspective, as we've heard it a number of times here, but again, you kind of glossed over it there, and I never like being put into a position to have to defend any elected official because it's super not my job. But, I mean, as much as there may be some factors, what you're talking about involving the former president, as much as we love talking about that issue, I mean, it still is a fact of the matter is that the vaccine came out during the presidency and came out during that. And yeah, you may say that he doesn't deserve credit for Operation Warp Speed. I'll leave that to the individual observer to decide here. But by kind of glossing over that one, it seems like you're missing a big part of the picture, given that has and continues to be the major part of the continuing response here has been the updated vaccines and those kind of things. I mean, pretty much all the other efforts have fallen away in favor of that, including some of the other treatment methods. So saying that, well, I just tried to take credit for it, it seems a little dishonest in that way. But of course, you're entitled to your opinion on it. But getting to the actual debate for tonight, again, we're expecting a number of different issues to come up. And again, the gubernatorial debate between incumbent Republican Governor Greg Abbott and Democrat challenger Robert Francis Beto O'Rourke, and what he will be hoping to try and drive in those wedge issues. Now, gun manufacturers, maybe not exactly on it, but gun laws in Texas will certainly be, it's one of the stated topics that will be coming up. So just as a reminder, we will be having our full local coverage happening on that. We will be airing to the debate, and of course we'll kind of break that down once we get to the next show on Monday, as well as getting into more of our political coverage as well. So tell you what, we gotta take the next break right now. Coming out of this break, we will talk more about the issues that affect us here in the borderland and beyond, and try to see what one of those callers wanted. So stay tuned for more Talk El Paso after this break. Again, that number to call here is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Don't go anywhere.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
I-10 westbound at Reynolds, that earlier crash is looking a little bit better. Still a backup, though. 4-minute delays westbound 10 from the Airway. 4-minute delays westbound 10 from Airway to the Patriot. I-10 eastbound slow from Cotton to Trowbridge with 10-minute delays. On the I-10 eastbound at Wrestler, a stalled vehicle blocking the right shoulder. It's a truck that's blocking the right shoulder on Memorial Highway northbound at Bob Hope. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Blindster. Want to save big on new blinds? Blindster.com offers custom-made blind shades and shutters shipped directly to you at prices less than big box retailers. Shop Blindster now and save 45% off any order. Just use code RADIO. Offer ends soon. Shop today. Blindster.com.
The biggest stars in all of music shared the stage at our iHeartRadio Music Festival.
A stallion.
It's your girl Megan Thee Stallion.
A pit bull.
Mr. 305.
A couple of combs.
Luke Combs.
Sean Diddy Combs.
A couple of legends.
Pat Benatar and Neil Giraldo.
The Black Keys.
Black Eyed Peas.
LL.
Cool J.
Marin Morris. And
Marcus Mumford.
She.
Avril Lavigne.
He.
Lionel Richie.
And them.
Sam Smith.
Halsey.
Our iHeartRadio Music Festival, brought to you by Capital One.
Coming to the CW October 7th and 8th.
From fuel injectors to intake valves to combustion chambers and beyond, your car's emission system takes a beating. It gets choked with baked-on carbon that affects your air-to-fuel ratio, slowing you down. You gotta keep it clean to get top performance, longer vehicle life, higher gas mileage, and to pass state emissions testing. Show your car some love with CRC Guaranteed to Pass Emission System Cleaner. Yep, guaranteed to pass. Strong language for a strong product. And here's some more. Double your money back if you don't pass. You know it's gotta work. It's on the shelf at your favorite auto parts store, so grab some today. Expensive? Heck no. Hard to use? Heck no. Effective? You bet. Try it once, and you'll add it to your car a few times a year to keep things rolling just right. CRC Guaranteed to Pass Emission System Cleaner. Look for the box.
It's baffling to think that 1/3 of America was for the revolution, 1/3 against, and 1/3 just didn't want to pick a side. Families were torn apart, like Ben Franklin's. Be sure to catch this week's edition of Our American Stories on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Downtown El Paso's Restaurant Week is September 23rd through the 30th. Visit downtownelpaso.com for more.
Kids dream big. Protect your child's dreams by keeping them healthy. If your son or daughter is age 11 or 12, the American Cancer Society recommends giving them the HPV vaccine to help prevent HPV cancers later. Learn more at cancer.org/dreambig.
The most current and comprehensive. Just minutes away at the top and bottom of the hour, and always online at KTSMradio.com. El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of commentary coming in right now, including from the many Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch pages and profiles we're on right now. Again, Free For All Friday is what we're doing, so let's try to get at least one more call before we hit that top of the hour and that next break. Again, the number to call is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Let's just try to get at least again one more on. We do have Jerry on the northwest side of town calling in right now. Jerry, thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you, Andrew, for taking my call.
Mm-hmm.
I say that the reparations should only be paid by the Democrats because they're the only party that were holding slaves in the United States. The Republican Party did not start until 1854. That's when it first started. Abraham Lincoln was the first one to run for president in the Republican Party. Now, he did buy a slave, and he owned her for about 30 seconds. He bought her to release her, to make her free, to make her a free soul, a free individual. That's the only individual that I know of that's of the Republican Party that owns slaves. Now, you'll have history books say that Jefferson was a Republican, but he was a Democrat Republican. Both words were in that, not just a Republican. And he was also part of the, I believe it was Whigs Party.
Whigs, Anti-Federalist, yeah, things like that.
Yes. Okay. So the ones that did own the slaves were the Democrats. So if there's going to be reparations paid, put it to the charge of the individuals that did the crime, and that was not the Republicans. Okay, as to gun companies paying for these school resource officers, if that's going to occur, then everybody that uses a car as a weapon or anything like that, they're going to have to make car companies pay for those individuals. If it's not the guns, it's the person behind the gun that's holding it. You can put a gun on a table, loaded, and it will never go off until somebody touches it. It will not go off by itself. Even despite what they had up there in Santa Fe when they were making a movie with the idiot that was holding the gun and then shot two people.
Yeah.
That's not how it works.
Yeah.
That's being called going off half-cocked.
Yeah, exactly. He claims that he didn't pull the trigger, but anyone who has held or understands the functioning of particularly an old style revolver like that without the safety bars installed, that releasing the hammer without taking it out very gently can still cause it. I can't believe he made that statement, to be perfectly honest with you, because I can see that being played out in court about him essentially admitting to, yes, I handled the gun in an unsafe manner, even if it was accidentally.
Yes, that's correct. So individuals that claim that gun companies should be doing the paying for school resource officers, that's like saying that the car company should be paying for auto accidents when it's due to the driver's fault or driver's negligence. Well, thank you, Andrew, for taking my call.
Yeah, sure thing.
Have a good weekend.
You too as well. Appreciate the point in the call. Have a good one there as well. I will say that I foresee a problem in the whole car and gun analogy, because one of the things on the horizon, not that I'm trying to repudiate you or say that I necessarily disagree with anything you said there, but I see on the horizon the potential for there being that, given that self-driving cars, we're on the cusp of it. Basically, I'm going to have a hell of a hard time in trying to accept that myself, which is why I'm glad I've got some vehicles recently procured that definitely don't have that, but I can still see a day when it might be more or less mandatory. I mean, we've seen it in fiction for years now, so it's not that hard to imagine. But more specifically, then when it comes to that, the idea of self-driving cars being equated with, like, say, the smart guns. There's at least one law in the books from New Jersey that I'm aware of nationally that as soon as any quote-unquote smart gun is available on the market, that all of the firearms within that state have to be meeting those same requirements. And there's a whole lot of factors within that, whether it be micro imprinting, whether it be fingerprint or palm print recognition, or the inability to fire interlock systems that are just, let's just say, the tech ain't there yet from anything I've seen. Even if it could be perfectly implemented, it's super not there already. And the cascading factors of that. So that's just one wrinkle I see coming up with that whole line of reasoning, probably in the near future. So a lot of comments there coming in, and we'll get to more of that here. Got to take that next break of the hour right now, getting to more of the commentary that has come in and more of the comments, all that we can squeeze in. So stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after this break. You're on News Radio 690 KTSM. Again, that number to call, 915-544-5876-544 KTSM. Get into some of the commentary we got off air and a whole lot more after this break. So stay tuned. More Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
I-10 westbound at Reynolds, that earlier crash has cleared, but there's still a backup. Stop-and-go traffic from Airway over to the Patriot. I-10 eastbound at Wrestler, a stalled truck is blocking the right lane, stay to the left. I-10 eastbound is slow from Cotton to Chelsea with 7-minute delays. Bumper to bumper right through the Spaghetti Bowl. And an injury accident South Dallas at San Antonio. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
Employee onboarding?
Automated.
Customer support?
Automated.
What if you could automate all your company's routine operation tasks and do it easily? Lead management.
Automated.
With Zapier, you can. Zapier is the leader in no-code automation. Connect over 5,000 apps, automate almost any workflow, and streamline your team's performance without hiring a developer and with no coding required. That's right. Zapier's templates make it simple for you to automate anything in minutes, no matter your level of expertise. Zapier eliminates routine tasks and frees your employees to focus on the bigger picture. And with Zapier's advanced security features and annual SOC 2 audits, your data is safe and secure. See why thousands of companies, including Slack, Salesforce, and HubSpot, trust Zapier to automate their businesses.
Even complex tasks?
Automated with Zapier.
Try Zapier for free today at zapier.com/radio. That's zapier.com/radio. Zapier.com/radio.
News on the hour and a half. Traffic and weather all day. News Radio 690 is KTSM AM El Paso, an iHeart radio station.
NBC News Radio, I'm Brian Shook. Ian is being downgraded from a hurricane to a post-tropical cyclone as it moves across South Carolina. The National Hurricane Center warns that a dangerous storm surge, flash flooding, and the threat of high winds are still in place. National Weather Service Director Ken Graham.
And that's just not on the beach. That sneaks up rivers, that sneaks up canals, that could get inland as well. So really listen to those local officials.
Winds are remaining strong at around 70 miles per hour. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis says the state is beginning the next steps of the recovery process. The governor told reporters officials are surveying the damage from the storm to determine a course of action to help residents that were impacted. He added 1,000 rescue crews are checking on people that didn't evacuate from Ian, and about 34,000 people have registered to receive aid from FEMA. Austin police say no one was injured following reports of gunshots at a hospital. First responders were sent to Ascension Seton Northwest Hospital for what was called a possible critical incident, but officers found no indication of an active shooter or that shots were even fired. The facility was placed on lockdown as a precaution. Police are investigating after the Russian consulate in New York City was vandalized overnight. Lisa G. reports.
Cops say the building on East 91st Street was defaced with spray paint around 1 a.m. There were no words or symbols spray painted on the building, but officials are treating it as a possible bias incident. It happened hours after Russian President Vladimir Putin signed treaties that paved the way to annex occupied areas of Ukraine. Lisa G., New York.
Miami Dolphins quarterback Tua Tagovailoa is back in South Florida, undergoing tests after being rocked last night by a violent hit at the end of the first half. You're listening to the latest from NBC News Radio. Massachusetts lawmakers want federal officials to investigate the recent transfer of migrants to Martha's Vineyard. Senator Ed Markey was among those to write to the Department of Transportation about the matter. He and others want the agency to investigate the flights which were chartered by the state of Florida. They also want to ensure that asylum seekers and other migrants cannot be transported under false pretenses. As the days inch closer to the midterm elections, voting by absentee ballot just got easier in Georgia. Liz Kennedy explains.
Voting groups can now send partially filled out applications for absentee ballots to those voters who request them online. The decision is based on documents filed in federal court this week, according to the AJC. The filing partially addresses a lawsuit over a new state law banning organizations and governments from mailing out multiple applications. The case pertained to an online absentee ballot app used by Vote America, an organization that provides nonpartisan tools and resources for voters across Georgia and the country. But the establishment has withdrawn from the lawsuit because of the new stipulation.
The FCC is ordering new rules aimed at decluttering space by reducing the time to remove non-working satellites. Michael Kastner has more.
The commission voted unanimously on Thursday to adopt new rules to address the growing risks of debris orbiting the Earth. The FCC will now require operators of low Earth orbit satellites 5 years to bring them back into the atmosphere 5 years after they've completed their missions. The commission noted more than half of the 10,000 satellites put into orbit since 1957 are no longer working.
The NBA's Memphis Grizzlies have a new look. The team unveiled a new uniform called the Beale Street Blue. It shows Grizzlies across the chest and Memphis above that in yellow. Brian Shook, NBC News Radio.
The can't-miss music event of the year is coming to the CW.
The 2022 iHeartRadio Music Festival.
Featuring once-in-a-lifetime performances from the biggest superstars in all of music.
Ladies and gentlemen,
what's up, Vegas?
Make some noise. I don't know if y'all ready for this one.
All hosted by Ryan Seacrest from T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas.
Don't miss our 2022 iHeartRadio Music Festival.
October 7th and 8th at 7 p.m. on the CW.
It's baffling to think that 1/3 of America was for the revolution, 1/3 against, and 1/3 just didn't want to pick a side. Families were torn apart, like Ben Franklin's. Be sure to catch this week's edition of Our American Stories on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
The El Paso Community Foundation supports the causes you feel passionate about here in the borderland, whether it's education, social services, arts and culture, the environment, health, or economic development. The El Paso Community Foundation has been promoting philanthropy and progress in our hometown region for more than 45 years. Make your mark with us. Start a fund today. For good, for El Paso, forever. Learn more at epcf.org. That's epcf.org.
The biggest stars in all of music shared the stage at our iHeartRadio Music Festival.
A stallion.
It's your girl Megan Thee Stallion.
A pitbull.
Mr. 305.
A couple of combs.
Luke Combs. Sean Diddy Combs.
A couple of legends.
Pat Benatar and Neil Giraldo.
The Black Keys.
Black Eyed Peas.
LL.
Cool J.
MM. Maren Morris. And MM.
Marcus Mumford.
She.
Avril Lavigne.
He.
Lionel Richie.
And them.
Sam Smith.
Halsey.
Our iHeartRadio Music Festival, brought to you by Capital One.
Coming to the CW October 7th and 8th.
John Mellencamp returns to the road, and iHeartRadio is getting you there. We'll fly you and a guest to the tour date of your choice and set you up with VIP tickets to the show. Plus, slap a backstage pass on your jean jacket so you can meet John. And you'll walk away with a sheet of handwritten lyrics to one of his legendary tunes. Prize provided by AEG. Enter for your chance to win now at iHeartRadio.com/John Mellencamp.
This report is sponsored by the Our American Stories podcast.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live, streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of stuff we're getting into today because that's what we do today. Free for All Friday is what we call it, and what that means is that we're taking on as much as we can. All callers, all questions, comments, concerns, etc. All comers throughout both hours of the program. So finishing our first hour strong, getting into the second one now. And just that programming note, again, going to be airing the entirety of the gubernatorial debate for the state of Texas here right after our show today. So be sure to stay tuned for that. Of course, the audio over on our many different audio channels, including, the iHeartRadio app, of course, through 690 AM if you're listening terrestrial radio style. And we'll, as soon as we find a good link for it, probably from KUT or KXAN, the ones hosting the debate, we'll be also posting that on our social media. So should give you the complete coverage there. And then, of course, our regular coverage for the afternoon will continue on immediately after that. RJ saying that this show makes him hungry when supper. What's for supper? I mean, we got some of our sponsors and advertisers, so I'll definitely point you towards them. But otherwise, whatever works for you, I guess, including green chili cheeseburgers. A lot of interesting comments that come in with all of that, and Whataburger being at fault for things. And RJ also bringing up the insane idea that would be possible, definitely with the whole smart gun concept. We brought up the idea of gun hackers, which is, God, we totally live in the dystopian future, but like not any of the cool and good ones. Not that there were good ones, but the cool ones. Anyway, let's get back to those phone lines again. The number to call there, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. One quick comment I want to make sure we get to. That caller that we weren't quite able to get on air to a little bit too much background noise. Let us know. It's actually a trucker driving around the area at the moment, often listens when he's in the area. Just as a subtler note, you can also, of course, listen to us through the iHeartRadio app, but saying that particularly his perspective on the gubernatorial debate would be interesting, very interested to hear what is being said, particularly from the O'Rourke camp when it comes to border security issues, saying that he himself has driven all the way from El Paso down to Laredo and all points in between, and seen a lot of issues, particularly as he was, I believe at the moment, he was a little hard to hear him, so I'm trying to give my best to relay what he was referring to, near the border highway, or anytime he's around that area, seeing a lot of the enforcement, the issues. I mean, I've never done exactly an exhaustive survey myself of that area, but even just casually driving by, I have also seen at previous points of time, not even the current crisis we are dealing with in the border security and immigration issues present right here in the borderland, seeing groups of people at the border fence waiting to present themselves to Border Patrol, essentially. So, yeah, a lot, a lot to get into there. Some further comments we'll get to. But again, back to that phone line. Right now, we do have John over in Central on the line with us right now. John, thanks for joining us.
Hello, Andrew.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I got a comment on tonight's debate.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. This is my prediction. Governor Abbott, the master, will give the want to be, the never will be youngster a good spanking. That's my prediction.
Okay.
Also, just for laughs and giggles, I composed a limerick for the listeners.
Okay.
It's clean, you know. I know limericks can be composed to be kind of
Uh-huh.
a little dirty. Okay, here we go. There was a boy named O'Rourke. Although he was known as a fool, he wished to be cool. When he grew up, he wished to be a big shot. His plan was to rake in the dough when he smoked his pot. He wished to be the man, so for governor he ran. On debate night, he popped his cork when the viewers all yelled, "That O'Rourke, what a dork." Okay? You all enjoyed tonight's debate, right?
All right. Well, thanks for the point of the call and bit of poetry there. Have a good one here. I'm just glad we didn't start with anything involving Nantucket, etc. Yeah, can't do that here. I mean, we take a lot of commentary in a lot of ways. Just, if you're calling in, it has to be kept clean. Otherwise, the FCC is coming after me, and we ain't doing that. I'm just going to put it that way. Anyway, more calls on the line here. Fridays are always, I look forward to them because, it's one of the more interesting days of the week. Let's just put it that way. Getting back to the calls again, the number to call if you want to get on the line yourself, 915-544-5876, 544 KTSM. Bernadette Benda Cole going along the lines of saying bet no with a B-E-T in capital N-O. Inspiring some further creativity here, I guess. Also, those commenting in here, including Eric McNabb, RJ, Louis Pinato, Marcus Arroyo, Kathy Codry, Jew Ans, Marky Mandingo, Austin Redfern, Abel Rodriguez, whole lot more, Eric Von Holstein Rathel a little bit earlier. Dropping those likes and reacts, we do appreciate. We do have Eric McNabb, Alex Campos, Matt Olson, Robbie Flores, Monica Cervantes, Ion Graham, Flaco Jimenez, Ida Beza Gardner, Bernadette Bandacol, and Louis Pinato. And Louis Pinato saying, I think specifically on the idea of no laws impinging gun ownership. I'm not saying I'm in favor of them. I'm just saying I'm aware of some, as much as trigger laws, no pun intended, have been being discussed in other realms. There exists some when it comes to some of these gun restrictions as well. So forewarned, forearmed, again, so to speak. And a discussion also going on in the comments about what is going on with some of those potential certificates of obligation funding. Again, just to make it clear in case there's any misconceptions, this will be a county vote. County commissioners will be the one taking action on that. Again, I believe that the date is right in the coming week, essentially, because we're almost on the cusp of October here. I know that's nuts to me because didn't we just start September? Any case, so yeah, that's county commissioners that will be making that decisions on essentially whether to accept the petition as it existed, or in order to, if they don't accept it, going more into, what their decision will be to put it onto the ballot themselves. That is still a possibility, and while there have been certain rallies and other things going on in our region. But anyway, back to the phones now. We do have Stephen on the east side here with us right now. Stephen, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Andrew. Yeah, I was with you. I got a little bit nervous for you when you said a limerick. I was like, uh-oh. But he kept it clean, so good for him.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I had a couple comments about some people who called yesterday. One person who just says, anybody who supports Abbott or, who's a Republican must be a racist, because they oppose illegal immigration. It's such a disingenuous type of argument to try to malign and demonize people who have different points of view. I mean, I think I told you when I lived in another country, they had limits on the number of work visas that they give to people who are foreigners because they're trying to protect their own workers. And so, when they put limits on the work visas, like I had limits, were they being racist against me? Or when the socialist government of Venezuela collapsed and all those people had to flood over to Colombia, and the Colombians were up in arms about, all these people flooding over their borders. And were they racist? Were the Colombians racist against Venezuelans? And even now you've got some black people in different cities around the country who are kind of up in arms about additional competition for jobs in those cities. Are the African-American communities in those cities racist also? I mean, it's more complicated than that. In the United States, I think we have one of the highest legal immigration rates in the world. I think we take in like 1 million legal immigrants every year. So people don't complain about the legal immigration. It's the chaos at the border that people are complaining about. And I think there's rightfully so. They're not able to properly vet the people who are coming over, and they were coming over during COVID and they weren't vaccinated. And, and there's a lot to go into play there. Our schools are going to be overwhelmed, the hospital system. So yeah, just calling everyone on the other side racist, I think that's a disingenuous argument. The other comment I wanted to have was, you were having this person on who was talking about the difficulties with the food banks and the poverty, and we are going to have more people who need help because inflation is really going to hit people's pocketbooks. The gas prices, also energy is the industry that affects every other industry. So if gas prices are high, if it costs a lot to heat your business, or you're going to affect prices. Everything's going to go up. So with the inflation shooting up, that's going to affect everyone. And then you're going to have more people who need those kinds of services. Ideally, that would have never happened. Ideally, we wouldn't have shut down all of our businesses and forced people to stay home and paid them not to work, and which lowered the availability of goods and services, which also helped with the inflation and the government printing all this money. I mean, ideally, we would have avoided all that, but I think they're trying to distract from the idea that it was the leftists in this country who pushed for all those policies that caused all this inflation, and it's going to cause people to fall more into poverty in the first place. And then my final point was with the hurricanes and everyone blaming every weather incident on anthropogenic climate change. That's also not really something that's provable. If you go back in history, I think Florida had 15 major hurricanes since like 1900. 10 of them, of the category 4 or 5, 10 of them were before 1960. 10 of the 15. So most of those big hurricanes actually happened in the past. And you can also look at the IPCC reports. They have low confidence that there is a signal from anthropogenic factors in the hurricanes to this point. Now, they have computer models that say that there's going to have 25% fewer hurricanes, but 5% increase in the strength of those hurricanes over the next century. Those are computer models, and they're always wrong. So, I don't look at those incidents of weather and say, oh, we definitely caused that to happen, as if there were no category 4 or 5 hurricanes before humans were around. That's just absolute nonsense.
So again, the way I kind of put it here is that I get a little bit of flack for this, but I'm trying to essentially separate, rhetorically speaking, the parts of the issue here, because I feel that looking at rates, looking at averages, looking at changes over recent years, it's clear that at least to me, that something is happening, that we have a situation going on where climate may be changing. Now, I know that is often a fraught phrase for some, but I want to separate it, at least conceptually here, from then what is causing it, because it's one thing to recognize it, another thing to say, well, what is causing it? Because okay, even just taking it to its conclusion there about if this is, again, anthropogenic, being caused by the activity essentially since the Industrial Revolution, a lot of course, the solutions that have been proposed along those lines have been along the lines of reducing carbon emissions or zero. I know at least a couple of states, usual suspects, California, New York, in this case, have been talking about requiring vehicles on the roads by like 2035 or so to be zero emissions. But let's just take that concept then to its conclusion about, yes, that carbon sequestration and natural processes naturally deal with some of it. But if all we're doing is going to net zero, meaning that we are not emitting much at all, that still then leaves the question of, okay, what is in the atmosphere? And of course, there are many sources of carbon. I mean, breathing technically is a form of carbon dioxide and carbon monoxide from other burning sources. So, I mean, that's a lot of finer points that people smarter than me are continuing to debate here. So honestly, the real best solution that has been presented to me would be just planting a buttload of trees. And I mean like covering better parts of continents, like returning the Scottish Highlands to the wooded forest that they used to be back in history before. Yes, men came through when once that area was settled and cut most of it down. Now, of course, that would ruin some of the landscape view of the natural terrain, but so much the better, because it might then keep other things from happening. It might mitigate some of the consequences of whatever is to come, again, whatever might be a part of it, because I mean, increasing carbon is definitely something that can be pointed at. So the point is that is one solution that has been posited that could actually then therefore deal with it. But unfortunately, I'm going to be kind of dubious, even if everyone were to get on board with it, whether it would happen or not, because there's not a whole lot of profit incentive behind it. No one's going to get rich or be able to regulate their rivals or businesses into oblivion by doing that kind of a thing. So as much as I would love to see that solution implemented, I have some concerns about it actually happening or not, because it often almost sounds too simple. The idea of planting just a boatload of trees, being able to do that. But I mean, as much as that might have an impact, we'll see if that can actually happen or not. But also, it doesn't really fit with a lot of the ways it's been being talked about so far. So I don't know. We'll see. But I think that, again, what it really comes down to it is, what are we going to do about here locally to deal with whatever comes next? Not looking towards what the future situations may be, as much as hindsight is 2020, at least looking a little bit before and trying to make some adjustments to what you see is coming will probably serve us better in the long run than almost any of these debates could be, at least from my perspective.
Yeah, I mean, the good news is that carbon dioxide does help plants and trees grow easier. They're more drought resistant. And the fact that there's more carbon dioxide in the atmosphere helps with those growth rates.
Mm-hmm.
But it is true that the climate has changed. I mean, there was a time period which was abnormally cold. They called it the Little Ice Age,
right,
where there was more than usual ice volume pickup, especially in the northern hemisphere, which is where most of the ice on the globe tends to accumulate. And that was, back in the 1800s when the Little Ice Age started to end.
Mm-hmm.
And we've definitely been warming since then. And also, we stopped using so much firewood and coal, and that used to send we started burning things cleaner. All that stuff going in the atmosphere, all that soot, it would block the sun, and it would also cause more cloud formation, which would also block the sun. So actually making things cleaner, in some ways, has actually allowed the sun to shine more. And also, the Little Ice Age was caused by some solar minimums, like the Maunder minimum and the Dalton minimum. You can go back and look at the sunspot records and see that. And we're kind of in a modern solar maximum right now. So all of that stuff contributes. And I agree with you. We just need to be able to prepare and handle things. And if it rains a lot, we need to be able to handle the rain. If it gets hot, we need to be able to handle the heat. And we need to have all kinds of energy sources: nuclear, electric, hydroelectric, solar, everything. And so we just need to prepare for all these different scenarios.
Yeah, the fact that nuclear, I mean, it's the mother of all NIMBY problems. I get that, not in my backyard. But if people are really talking about green energy and the revolution they're wanting with that, there has to be, of course, a backdrop of it. Because, I mean, it might be said like, oh, well, we don't have enough power today. That's just too bad, folks, if you're thinking about just like your air conditioning. But we're talking about whole sectors of our society, those that require advanced medical equipment, life support devices in their homes, that's not a solution for. So we don't have a true backup for it. And currently, a lot of the backups are in coal, increasingly like natural gas, which maybe there's a place for if you want to just truly game this out and have concepts for it. But really, if you're not thinking about reliability above all, we're setting ourselves up for failure.
Yeah, and if people are poor and energy poor and starving, they're not going to care about the environment. So we try to be successful and wealthy, then we will have enough time to care about the environment.
Yep, I mean that. People who are having to basically worry about the basic needs of life aren't really inclined to deal with much larger issues like that. So, I mean, this is not something we're going to solve today, but certainly interested in having the further discussion on it here. So, thank you for the point in the call. Do appreciate it.
Thanks.
All right, tell you what, we got to take that next break right now. Just one finer point I want to make about that Little Ice Age phenomenon. I subscribe to the theory that essentially the denser wood that came out of it essentially led to the development of such famed instruments such as the Stradivarius, but that's another theory for another time. So Let's go ahead and take that next break. Again, the number to call 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
I-10 eastbound slow for your Friday commute from Cotton to Chelsea with 9-minute delays. Stop and go traffic all the way through the Spaghetti Bowl. 10 eastbound at Wrestler, a truck is blocking the right lane. Stay to the left, Lower Valley. On Border Highway, eastbound at Zaragoza, the exit ramp there is blocked. Heavy congestion. Injury accident downtown Dallas at San Antonio Avenue. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Red Pilled America.
Listen to Red Pilled America's multi-part series on Richard Nixon. It's an in-depth look into why the media in Hollywood are so obsessed with him, and goes a long way in explaining what Watergate was really about. Listen to Red Pilled America on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts. That's Red Pilled America.
The biggest stars in all of music share the stage at our iHeartRadio Music Festival.
A stallion.
Your girl Megan Thee Stallion.
A pit bull.
It's a 305.
A couple of combs.
Luke Combs. Sean Diddy Combs.
A couple of legends.
Pat Benatar and Neil Giraldo.
The Black Keys.
Black Eyed Peas.
LL.
Cool J.
Maren Morris. And
Marcus Mumford.
She. Avril Lavigne. He.
Lionel Richie.
And them.
Sam Smith.
Policy.
Our iHeartRadio Music Festival, brought to you by Capital One.
Coming to the CW October 7th and 8th.
From fuel injectors to intake valves to combustion chambers and beyond, your car's emission system takes a beating. It gets choked with baked-on carbon that affects your air-to-fuel ratio, slowing you down. You gotta keep it clean to get top performance, longer vehicle life, higher gas mileage, and to pass state emissions testing. Show your car some love with CRC Guaranteed to Pass Emission System Cleaner. Yep, guaranteed to pass. Strong language for a strong product. And here's some more. Double your money back if you don't pass. You know it's gotta work. It's on the shelf at your favorite auto parts store, so grab some today. Expensive? Heck no. Hard to use? Heck no. Effective? You bet. Try it once, and you'll add it to your car a few times a year to keep things rolling just right. CRC Guaranteed to Pass Emission System Cleaner. Look for the box.
This is a special alert to all Americans who own a vehicle with less than 200,000 miles with an auto warranty about to expire or with no warranty coverage at all. Due to a decline in the economy, CarShield is announcing a low-cost month-to-month vehicle protection plan that is now available to the public to save any driver out-of-pocket expenses on future auto repairs. Call now to find out how you can pay almost nothing for covered auto repairs. Yes, you heard that correctly. Pay almost nothing for covered auto repairs. An open phone line has been established for all drivers to call for a free quick quote. Call 800-838-4715 now. Drivers who are covered will not have to pay for covered repairs again. This protection plan is at an all-time low. Additionally, drivers who activate this vehicle protection today will also receive free roadside assistance, free towing, and car rental options at no additional cost. Call us for your free quick quote today. 800-838-4715. That's 800-838-4715. What do you have to lose? Call 800-838-4715. Again, 800-838-4715.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so. A lot of ways to interact with the show, particularly at this point during the program. We got the phone lines open, full up at the moment, but if you want to squeeze in, that number to use is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. A lot of comments coming in. I've lost all track. I'll just be perfectly honest with you. But a lot of so many topics going on there. If you can do so safely, I heartily recommend take a look at the comments if you're willing to wade into them, because there is just so many different strings and lanes of thought and the replies going back and forth. We could do the full 2 hours of just trying to keep track of that. At least some of them, we try to pop them up on screen here. But let me just say that whenever we're talking about these issues, we certainly get into important and significant ones in a lot of ways, particularly on a day like today, Friday. But whenever you're relying on labels and kind of these high level things, as opposed to like dealing with the issues, I usually find you're not going to have a good time here. Because we have Eric McNabb saying that right-wing people don't know better. than the world's major governments, scientific bodies, and militaries at all. That all say we need to take action ASAP. There is no debate. And see, anything that ends up going towards no, we're not allowed to talk about that. You just have to accept it. I'm always going to talk about whatever the hell I want to talk about. So trying to say that, no, you can't talk about that just makes me want to talk about it more. But also, whenever we're using these kind of broad level labels, frankly, I'm not even trying to say I'm picking on you for anything, but let me just give you a bit of advice. Let's talk about the issues as opposed to saying, no, this is settled, or no, you're not allowed to talk about that. You just have to take it as fact. There are always going to be finer points to talk about and debate. And just to say that, well, if you disagree with me, you're just wrong. That's also not how this works. So, I mean, encouraging you to make your comments there, but just know that the way it might be received can be better than Moore's in a lot of other ways. So, I mean, yeah, just good luck with it, I guess is the best I can say. I can only give out certain levels of advice here. So let's go back to those phone lines now. A lot more comments coming in. Let's take at least one more before we hit that next break. We do have Frankie and Messia on the line with us here right now. Frankie, thanks for joining us.
All right. This is, again, a bittersweet day. Friday, end of the program. Got to wait all blasted weekend before you come back on. Well, let me just say this thing. You El Pasoans, you better start learning the word or the acronym Mojica, because it's coming. All these nut jobs in Florida who got their beachfront $1 million homes wrecked and their boats and stuff, the insurance company is going to pay, and you, El Pasoans, are already paying outrageous property taxes. You better Mojica, because you're going to be paying more for your hazard insurance, all because of these nut jobs that boneheaded people who build a house in a hurricane zone, for crying out loud. What is the matter with human beings, for crying out loud? That's what I want to say.
I mean, I guess, particularly for Florida, they're no strangers to it around there and the things that come with it. But I'm not exactly sure that that's going to be transferred over here to Texas exactly. Yes, there has been some announcements from, say, Governor Greg Abbott about sending resources to Florida, but it being immediately, sure, there have definitely been implications for when previous hurricanes have hit, not even just beachfront property, but say like, again, I keep going back to Katrina in Houston because that's one of the ones that impacted me personally more than most. Of the previous hurricanes, not necessarily because I knew anyone hurt in it, but because of what we saw come out of it. I was in school at that time. We had a bunch of, refugees from that end up at our school at that point in time. So I guess I did know someone who was involved in it. Let me retract my previous statement. But, so that and those responses, yeah, that can cause it. But also, I guess that goes a little bit to the idea of preparation. And we have seen a little bit of movement on that kind of nationally and so to a certain extent within the state of essentially, I think it comes down to FEMA as well, actually, and talking about buying out of certain locations. But telling people where they can and can't live is kind of a fraught enterprise.
No, I disagree 100%. Listen, if you want to live in a tornado zone, earthquake zone, a hurricane zone, or whatever dangerous natural stuff, that's your problem. Don't expect me to pay to replace your $1.5 million beachfront home. I'm not doing it. And I don't think anybody else in El Paso, once you get the bill, and you sure will, because these insurance companies, they want their money back. You better believe that. And by the way, hey, befuddled Ben, let's go Amber Parker. That's what I want to say.
All right. Well, thank you very much for the point in the call. You have a good one there.
All right, you take care.
All right, and we'll go ahead and take that next break off of that as well, just to get maybe a little bit on track with the breaks here, as much of that may be a futile enterprise on my own. So coming out of this break, more calls, more comments, squeezing out what we can before the end of the show. But of course, don't forget, going to be kicking off right after our program with the gubernatorial debate. So stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after this break here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Hello, I'm Erica Castillo with this KFOX 14 News Update. The Gadsden School District rolled out its Parents on Patrol program today. The school district is receiving help from local parents to help address the lack of school resource officers at its campuses. The Gadsden School District has struggled to bring school resource officers to all its campus. At the start of the school year, the district only had officers at 2 of its 27 campuses. When the program was started, 77 parents signed up as volunteers, but 14 passed the background checks and went through the training period. The parents are not allowed to carry weapons on duty. And the city of El Paso's History Museum will host an out-of-this-world exhibit. It's called Hubble, the Space Telescope. It will be on view beginning October 1st. The Hubble Traveling Exhibition is a 2,200 square foot interactive exhibit that immerses visitors in the magnificence and the mystery of the Hubble mission and introduces the James Webb Space Telescope. I'm Erica Castillo with this KFOX 14 News Update.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
Heavy congestion on the I-10 eastbound at the 54 Patriot exit. Expect delays and a solid backup at the Pan American exit off the southbound Loop 375. Lower Valley eastbound at Zaragoza, same story. Heavy congestion. Expect delays. I-10 eastbound, Cotton to Paisano Drive. That's an 8-minute delay. I'll stop and go. And an accident reported North Desert Boulevard northbound at Mesa Street. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
We're ending the work week with some clouds overhead, but the warm and dry weather pattern will continue with seasonable temperatures. Your forecast for tonight has partly cloudy skies with temperatures cooling into the middle to upper 50s by Saturday morning. Coming up tonight, we'll talk about how long this fall-like weather continues, plus a look at your weekend forecast. From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Kira Miner.
This report is sponsored by the Mark Moss Show podcast.
A big meeting went down this week, signaling the end of fiat currency as we know it, and a new system is being set up now. I'm Mark Moss, helping you navigate the decentralized revolution. Listen to the Mark Moss Show on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Employee onboarding?
Automated.
Customer support?
Automated.
What if you could automate all your company's routine operation tasks and do it easily?
Lead management?
Automated.
With Zapier, you can. Zapier is the leader in no-code automation. Connect over 5,000 apps, automate almost any workflow, and streamline your team's performance without hiring a developer and with no coding required. That's right. Zapier's templates make it simple for you to automate anything in minutes, no matter your level of expertise. Zapier eliminates routine tasks and frees your employees to focus on the bigger picture. And with Zapier's advanced security features and annual SOC 2 audits, your data is safe and secure. See why thousands of companies, including Slack, Salesforce, and HubSpot, trust Zapier to automate their businesses.
Even complex tasks?
Automated with Zapier.
Try Zapier for free today at zapier.com/radio. That's zapier.com/radio. Zapier.com/radio.
Recycle your old technology free during Staples Free Tech Take Back. Items like old modems, mice, and mobile phones or cables, calculators, and camcorders. Staples Rewards members get $5 back in rewards. Exclusions apply. Limit 1 reward per month. Visit staples.com/recycling. Recycle at Staples. This report is sponsored by Staples Stores.
Sweetie, want some fruit? You have to use the right tool for the job. A power drill is the wrong tool to slice fruit. Just like an antibiotic is the wrong tool to treat viruses, including colds and flu. Antibiotics are only needed for certain bacterial infections. When they aren't needed, antibiotics won't help you, and the side effects could still hurt you. Ask your healthcare professional when an antibiotic is the right tool and when it's not. Visit cdc.gov/antibiotic-use.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thanks for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of stuff we're talking about here today, but that's kind of the point. Because what we do on Fridays is getting into, well, just about everything we can cram into 2 hours anyway, which is never quite enough, but we do our level best to get to all that we can as we have all the comments and calls. Free for All Friday is what we call it, because we'll take it all on as much as it can anyway. Again, always in search of a more perfect response. But in any case, if you want to get on the line, full up at the moment, but that number to call is 915-544-5876, 544 KTSM. A lot of comments coming in, including RJ saying essentially trying to point out a collusion between banks and insurance companies, saying, wake up, banks are financing beachfront condos, insurance companies are insuring them. Do you think that would happen if sea levels are about to rise? I mean, yes and no. Might be a fire sale going on with it, and it's not always been seen that those entities are the best planners. I mean, there are still crashes that happen or have, even in the just pre-modern era. But a lot of other commentary on the possibility of it, and also a lot of interesting looking at the way posts are being made. Let me just say, begging anyone else for an argument is probably not a good way to do it. A full post won't show up on screen here, but trying to make your own sincere arguments about what you feel or think should be done or is the response to the situation is probably going to be one of the better ways it can go about it anyway. Let's get back to the phone calls now, because getting to that, but also Ion Graham, especially on the housing thing, saying that the multi-million homeowners pay a very large premium for insurance, or they can't build, live, or keep the property. I know because they gave friends who pay dearly to live where they live in Florida. Have friends, I think I meant to say. And there are also stringent flood control mandates and requirements, which are updated yearly. It's their choice. Anyway, a lot more commentary on those kind of situations. But let's squeeze in with phone calls we can before the end of the show. Again, a reminder, we're going to be airing the governor's debate right after this program, so stay tuned for that. But getting back on the phone line now, we do have Mike on the east side with us right now. Mike, thanks for joining us.
Hi, Andrew.
Hey there. What's on your mind?
I want to respond to Raul's comments yesterday.
Okay.
Mentioned something about climate change. He also mentioned about poverty under Trump's policies, or the more people are poor under Trump. And he also mentioned Genesis 6, but I'm not sure if I can tackle all of them. But let me just
Fair enough.
say first and foremost, Raul, you're not qualified about climate change. You're not a climatologist. You're not a scientist. But let me give you two climatologists, geophysical scientists. One of them is Dr. William M. Gray. He has a PhD in geophysical science. The other one is climatologist Michael Schellenberger, author of The Apocalypse Never. I encourage you to get that book. But anyway, these people, talk about, the climate, or climate fear-mongering that's going on right now. And one of the questions is, like, if global warming is true, are humans a significant factor? Well, according to Dr. Gray, he said the human impact on the atmosphere is simply too small to have a major effect on global warming or global temperatures. He pointed out that this is not settled science. There must be an open, honest debate, which the media, they don't want to. They just have a narrative, and they won't accept any alternative. So that's one of them. Then the left will never ever accept. What they will do is that they'll castigate people who have a different opinion.
Mm-hmm.
They start saying you're climate deniers and all kinds of horrible things. Question number 2: is global warming necessarily bad? Well, according to to the climatologist, common sense might lead us to consider that a warming trends as we are experiencing now are less dangerous than a new ice age. The reality is simply we just don't know everything. We don't have complete data.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, I'm going to go now to Michael Schellenberger, the author of The Apocalypse Never. He said that climate pundits treat climate change as a religion, a pagan god. And he said that it was an irrational fear to the public. They want to manipulate people into believing that we have the biggest crisis, an existential threat to the earth, and that if we don't do something about it, we're all going to die. Like Beto O'Rourke said a couple of years ago that, he said that El Paso will be underwater in, 10 years or so. So the real threat, he said, to climate change are the policies that, these people are making, making energy scarce when we have abundance of it. some parts of our country are already trying to ban gas appliances that will really put people in a bind, you know. And then, of course, I want to jump really quickly because I know there's a time limit here. He, you know, I'm not sure what Raul smokes, but under Trump's policy, you know, he put more money in people's pockets. People could afford food, rent was lower, etc. And of course, kids were not suffering. Now, today, I know people, even my sister, who her rent went $100 more starting in January because inflation is so high. This is Biden's policies. We are being taxed more because we're paying more for food, we're paying more for gasoline, we're paying more for electricity, more for rent, you name it. I mean, I don't understand where this guy gets his facts, but these are the facts. People are hungry. I know people, like I said, like my sister, she's a single mother, and she has to pay higher rent, more expensive. I mean, this is real people.
Right.
I don't know what this guy, you know, wants to say that, you know, he ought to talk about the positive things that Biden is doing instead of just focusing negative on Trump. Talk about what policies Biden is doing to help America. And the last one really fast. He mentioned something about Genesis, the luge. Well, I'm just going to quote from the Bible real fast. I think it's in chapter 6, verses 5 to 7, where the Lord saw wickedness in human beings. The Lord, you know, saw that the wickedness in humanity was just, it troubled his heart. So he said, I will wipe from the face of the earth the human race I have created. Now here, it's his earth. This is his earth, this is his world, and he can destroy, he can whatever he wants to do. And you just go back to, I think he talks so fast that I think he was mentioning something that you know, that God, I don't know if people mentioned that God caused it or that we caused the deluge that happened on the earth, the flood. I'm not sure where he was coming from, honestly, because he was talking so fast. But here, God is in control. He did send the deluge. And by the way, you know, everything that happens, the earthquakes, the hurricanes, those are natural disasters that the earth is cleansing itself. You know, according to the, you know, experts, it cleanses itself. The earth is just, it's a cycle that is going through. You and I cannot save the earth. You and I have nothing to do with the moon and the stars and the skies and the winds. Nothing. It's just people want to control people's lives. And it's a religion. It's a culture. It's a cult. Anyway, those are my final comments, Andrew.
All right. Well, thank you for the point in the call. Do appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. Have a wonderful day.
You too as well, and a good weekend. I mean, I guess the biggest issue I have, and again, the climate debate, as I'm putting it here, is that it's the assumption of outcomes from it, that either you disagree with us or you're wrong, and therefore we have to do certain things. And that's particularly the debate part I'm talking about here, because yes, there are obviously certain conditions I'm looking at, making my own evaluation of, but it's definitely and therefore we have to take these actions. When it gets to policy, there's a reason we focus on policy when we're going to be talking even further with, of course, the very many candidates we got coming up for you for election season that we'll be launching into on Monday. More details coming about that on the next break. But yeah, there's a reason we talk about that, because it might be saying, okay, we've got these issues, we need to address them, and we want to address it right. Like, that's not a policy position. You need to tell me, okay, but what exactly you want to do about that, and then we can have and continue the discussion here. Let's get to at least one more call before we get to that next break. We do have Joel over in Central with us right now. Joel, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, I'm calling because of a construction that they're supposed to do over there on the 900 block of Oregon and Montana for the bus stops, you know, the Brio, and they're supposed to start. I think I don't know how long. I don't know what the heck they do. The way these people run the buses, but you know, nothing has been done. I didn't see any construction workers, so I called and I complained, and I told them, but you know, they either ignore you or they don't listen to you. They don't want to hear it. But I told the lady, the moron that answers, she was a dispatcher. I said, you've had this the bus. This is a bus stop that where college students catch a bus, catch a Brio to go to downtown or some other parts of El Paso, and you don't seem to care. But I did tell her I will be there at your office, and I will be taking pictures of the construction workers who don't do their jobs and city employees, because I have a right to do that. It's a public street. And it's not inside their property, it's outside the property. I have a right to do that, and I have a right to complain. But if I go and if I see you and if I know it's you, I'm going to chew you out in front of your boss. I've done that before. They don't listen to the people. And I think what I can't believe is how do these some of these people that are department heads, how did they do it? I consider some of them morons. I was going to ask you. I would like to have a send an email to Stefania to look into the way they run the bus system. But one thing, I wonder if some of their employees have at least a GED or a high school diploma. That's what one of my concerns is. But I tell you, man, this city is pitiful the way they run their departments, and that's all I have to say. But I will complain. I'm gonna get a hold. Yeah, I'll try to get a hold of Stephanie, because there's a lot of complaints against the city and the county right now. And have a great day. Okay.
Right, sure thing. Thank you for the point on the call. You have a good one there as well. I mean, you're entitled to do whatever you do. I mean, I'm not going to say play in traffic and take pictures on a public street. I don't think we're going to get much away from the one guy using the shuffle, four guys watching him kind of public construction that seems to always happen. But yeah, I guess more power to you. Just maybe don't be a jerk, but that would be my advice on it, because I'm not sure if it's going to work out for you. In any case, that's going to take us through that next break right now. And coming out of this break, tell you what I got coming up for you. Again, resetting the table for what comes up next hour, where we're getting into that debate. All those details and a whole lot more coming after this break here on News Radio 690 KTSM. I am your host, Andrew J. Polk, squeezing in what we can. So stay tuned for more here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Watch for a crash on the 54 North at Alameda Avenue. It's blocking the right lane and causing a slight backup. Lower Valley 375 southbound at Pan American. The exit ramp is blocked. Just a lot of congestion there. Stop and go on the 10 eastbound from Cotton to Paisano Drive with 8-minute delays, and an accident reported North Desert Boulevard at Mesa Street. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by the Our American Stories podcast.
It's baffling to think that 1/3 of America was for the revolution, 1/3 against, and 1/3 just didn't want to pick a side. Families were torn apart, like Ben Franklin's. Be sure to catch this week's edition of Our American Stories on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
From fuel injectors to intake valves to combustion chambers and beyond, your car's emission system takes a beating. It gets choked with baked-on carbon that affects your air-to-fuel ratio, slowing you down. You gotta keep it clean to get top performance, longer vehicle life, higher gas mileage, and to pass state emissions testing. Show your car some love with CRC Guaranteed to Pass Emission System Cleaner. Yep, guaranteed to pass. Strong language for a strong product. And here's some more. Double your money back if you don't pass. You know it's gotta work. It's on the shelf at your favorite auto parts store, so grab some today. Expensive? Heck no. Hard to use? Heck no. Effective? You bet. Try it once, and you'll add it to your car a few times a year to keep things rolling just right. CRC Guaranteed to Pass Emission System Cleaner. Look for the box.
Texting enrolls you into recurring automated text messages. Consent not required to purchase. Message and data rates may apply.
Hey, Dan, how you doing? Haven't seen you around the gym for a while.
Yeah, I've really fallen off. Since I turned 40, I just don't get the results I used to get.
Could be lower testosterone.
Lower T?
Yeah, I went through it a while back. Once you hit 40, your body has less free testosterone. I got Nugenix Total T, and it's made a huge difference for me.
I've seen that ad on TV. Is it for real?
Oh, yeah. The patented key ingredient is something called Testofen, which helps boost free and total testosterone levels to help you trim up and stay lean.
And it's made a
a difference for you?
Man, I feel like I'm in my 20s again, at work, in the gym, and in the bedroom.
Are they still giving out complimentary bottles for people to try it for themselves?
Yeah, you just need to send them a text.
Text PRIDE to 42424 right now for your complimentary bottle of Nugenix Total T, the #1 selling testosterone booster at GNC. Plus, text now and we'll include a bottle of Nugenix Thermo, our most powerful fat incinerator ever, to help you get back into shape fast. Absolutely free. Text PRIDE to 42424. That's PRIDE to 42424.
Because everyone deserves excellent medical care, El Paso has its own free community medical clinic. RotoCare is a free walk-in clinic located at 301 South Schutz Drive and is devoted to improving the health of all El Pasoans, including those without insurance or legal documentation. RotoCare is open most Saturdays from 9 a.m. to noon. For more information, call 790-0700. RotoCare, because everyone deserves excellent medical care.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I've been your host, Andrew J. Polk. Covered quite a lot of ground here today, from slavery to global warming to political issues of all stripes here. Yeah, that's I guess kind of what we do on Fridays. So I guess I'm not surprised by any stretch, but I guess I'm always a little bit. I guess I am kind of surprised sometimes whenever it comes down to how far afield we get sometimes. But hey, that's what we do on a day like today, and we'll of course keep doing that as we do every Monday through Friday. A little bit more focus and sometimes, and a particular focus coming up here. I have been teasing it. We are going to be on Monday, launching into our election coverage, meaning we're going to be cramming in as many of the candidates, as many of the issues, many of the big things coming up. Of course, Monday we'll be definitely breaking down some major part of the debates that are going to come up right after this. Again, immediately, like 5 minutes from now, give or take. We're going to be airing the live debate for the gubernatorial race here in Texas, O'Rourke versus Abbott. So stay tuned for that. Of course, we'll be breaking that down on Monday. But of course, another one we got coming for you, all of the candidates. We have a lot of races on the ballot. I mean, we've got county commissioner seats. We have got many different city council positions and a whole lot of candidates for that. At least 3 congressional districts just in our listener and viewership area. So yeah, we got quite the docket, and we're going to be squeezing in as much as we can ahead of Election Day and probably through it. So stay tuned for all of that. We're going to be doing our special election coverage. So anyone wants to get involved with that, of course, candidates need not apply for the advertising and support of us here, because we will be including up to live election night coverage as part of what we'll be doing. So if you're interested in being a part of that, drop me a line anyway. Give me an email, andrewpolk@iheartmedia.com. And a whole lot more that we'll start getting into in between that. Don't worry, we'll of course keep talking about the issues, but that'll be predominantly our interviews coming up. So stay tuned for all of that. And again, stay tuned for the debate coming up immediately after our program today. So it's been a week. It's been a month. It's been a year so far, but we'll keep it going as we do, again, every Monday through Friday. So that's going to do it for us today. Want everyone to make sure they save out there. And, of course, tune into the El Paso History Radio Show airing tomorrow here on News Radio 690 KTSM 10 to noon, talking about archivists and celebrations of them in our region. So, of course, stay tuned for that. And, of course, Talk El Paso brought to you in part by Sunland Park Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. Of course, they have a great selection of new and used vehicles. Check them out at their location at 950 Crockett. But that's going to do it for us for today. So I want to thank everyone that did tune in, call in, comment, participate in the show. Seriously, these conversations are what make it worthwhile for me, and I hope for you all as well. And we'll keep doing it. So in the meantime, before we see you all next week, stay safe out there. Look twice for motorcycles when out on the road, and have a great evening. We'll see you all next week.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Watch for a crash on the 54 North at Alameda Avenue. It's blocking the right lane and causing a slight backup. Lower Valley 375 southbound at Pan America, and the exit ramp is blocked. Just a lot of congestion there. Stop and go on the 10 eastbound from Cotton to Paisano Drive with 8-minute delays, and an accident reported North Desert Boulevard and Mesa Street. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
Hello?
Mike, this is Norma Jean at Sergio Lewis Body Shop near the airport. Have you seen Sergio?
I'm expecting him in a few minutes to cut a new commercial.
I'm really worried about him, Mike. He really believes he's a poet.